Oops, my mistake. I actually thought the trash can was over there. But looking at you now, I realize the confusion is understandable. You look exactly like a walking dumpster. The cold slime of black beluga caviar slid down the back of Simone's neck. It mixed with the sticky warmth of a 50-year-old Cabernet Sauvignon, soaking into the gray cotton of her vintage Yale hoodie. She did not gasp. She did not scream. She just stood there, frozen in the middle of the glittering ballroom of the Elite Future Gala. Her hands were still trembling, but not from the cold wine. They were trembling because 40 minutes ago, she had been holding her mother's hand in the ICU, listening to a ventilator breathe for the woman who gave her life. Simone had run here. She had run straight from the smell of antiseptic and death to this hotel because the contract in her bag was the only thing that could save her family legacy. She had not slept in 3 days. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and under her eyes were dark circles that no concealer could hide. She looked defeated. She looked weak. And to the man standing in front of her, she looked like something he could scrape off his shoe. Liam Harrington, the 35-year-old tech CEO of the moment. He stood there in a bespoke midnight blue tuxedo that cost more than most people's cars. He held the empty crystal glass in his hand and smiled. It was a cruel smile. A smile that said he owned the world, and everyone in it was just a prop for his amusement. Don't move. Liam stepped closer. He placed the empty wine glass directly on top of Simone's head. Stay right there. Since you are dressed like a tablecloth, you might as well be useful. Hold this for me while I get a fresh drink. The crowd around them went silent, but it was not a silence of sympathy. It was the silence of predators watching a kill. A few people chuckled. Phones came out. Cameras started flashing. Simone felt the weight of the glass on her head. The humiliation burned hotter than the wine on her skin. She slowly reached up to take the glass down, but a hand grabbed her wrist. It was not Liam. Simone turned and saw a face she knew better than her own. It was Jessica, her sister-in-law, the woman who had married Simone's younger brother 5 years ago. Jessica was wearing a silver gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. A gown Simone knew for a fact cost $4,000 because the charge had appeared on Simone's American Express black card last Tuesday. Jessica looked at the wine dripping from Simone's hoodie. She looked at Liam Harrington, and then panic flooded her eyes. Not panic for Simone, panic for herself. "Oh my God," Jessica shrieked. Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Simone, what the hell are you doing here? You just ruined Mr. Harrington's evening. Look at this mess. Look at you. You look disgusting." Simone blinked. The fatigue in her bones was heavy, like lead. "Jessica, Mom is worse. I needed to come here to sign the papers for the trust fund so we can pay for the surgery. I just need a towel." "Shut up," Jessica hissed. She dug her manicured fingernails into Simone's arm and yanked her backward. "Do not talk about your sick mother in front of these people. Do not bring your bad energy here. Do you have any idea who this is? This is Liam Harrington. He is going to invest in my husband's company. He is our ticket to the big leagues, and you are ruining it with your poverty look." Simone looked at her sister-in-law. She looked at the diamond earrings swinging from Jessica's ears. Diamonds Simone bought for her birthday. She thought about the sprawling 5-bedroom house in the Hamptons where Jessica slept every night. Simone had paid the mortgage on that house for 3 years, so her brother would not feel like a failure. She thought about Jessica's 2 children, currently attending the most expensive private school in Manhattan. Simone wrote the tuition checks every semester, and yet here was Jessica, standing in front of the man who just assaulted her family and begging for his forgiveness. "I am so sorry, Mr. Harrington." Jessica's voice changed instantly. It went from a screech to a syrupy, sweet purr. She let go of Simone and turned to Liam. Her posture slumped. She made herself small, submissive. "Please forgive my sister-in-law. She is not well. She gets confused. She does not belong here among people of your caliber." Liam laughed. He took the glass from Simone's head and handed it to a passing waiter without looking at him. "Is that so? Well, she certainly smells like she does not belong here. I honestly thought she was the cleaning lady trying to steal some shrimp." Jessica forced a laugh. A hollow, desperate sound. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a silk handkerchief. But she did not reach out to wipe the caviar from Simone's neck. She did not offer it to the woman who put a roof over her head. Instead, Jessica dropped to her knees. Right there on the marble floor in front of hundreds of New York's elite, Jessica fell to her knees at Liam Harrington's feet. She saw a tiny speck of wine on his patent leather shoe. "Let me get that for you, sir," Jessica said. Her voice trembled with eagerness. "We cannot have your evening ruined by her clumsiness." Simone felt something snap inside her chest. It was not anger. It was something colder, something harder. It was the sound of a bridge burning. She watched the woman she had treated like a sister wipe the shoe of a man who treated them both like dirt. "Jessica," Simone said. Her voice was low. It was quiet, but it carried a frequency that made the hair on the back of necks stand up. "Stand up. Get off your knees. Have some dignity." Jessica froze. She looked up from the floor, her face red with embarrassment and rage. She glared at Simone. "You apologize," Jessica hissed through her teeth. "You apologize to Mr. Harrington right now, Simone. Get down here and tell him you are sorry for existing in his space. Do it, or so help me God, I will make sure you never see your nephews again." The threat hung in the air. The blackmail. Using the children Simone loved against her. Simone looked at Liam. He was smirking. He was enjoying this. He was watching two women tear each other apart for his amusement. He checked his watch. A Patek Philippe. "Tick-tock," Liam said. "I am waiting for that apology. And make it good. I might even toss you a 20 if you cry." Simone reached down. She grabbed Jessica by the shoulder of her silver dress and physically hauled her up. Jessica stumbled, her heels clicking frantically on the floor. Simone did not let go. She pushed Jessica aside, not gently. "No," Simone said. She stepped forward. She closed the distance between herself and Liam Harrington. She smelled the expensive cologne he wore to mask the scent of his rotting soul. She looked him dead in the eye. "I am going to give you exactly 3 seconds," Simone said. Her voice was steady. It was the voice she used in boardrooms when she was about to gut a company. 3 seconds to apologize for touching me. 3 seconds to apologize for disrespecting my family. And 3 seconds to pray I do not destroy everything you have built. 1. The ballroom went silent. Truly silent. The band stopped playing. Liam stared at her. His eyes went wide, not with fear, but with pure incredulity. He looked at his friends. He looked at the crowd. And then he threw his head back and laughed. It was a loud, barking laugh that echoed off the high ceilings. "Did you hear that?" Liam shouted to the room. "The trash is talking. The trash thinks it has demands." He snapped his fingers. The sound was like a gunshot. 2. Simone counted. She did not blink. She did not flinch. "Waiter," Liam yelled. "Manager. Anyone. Get security over here. There is a homeless woman harassing the guests. She is mentally unstable and she is threatening me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick clip of cash. He peeled off 5 $100 bills and threw them into the air. They fluttered down, landing on Simone's shoulders, landing in the puddle of wine on the floor. "There is $500 for the first person who drags this animal out of my sight," Liam sneered. "Get her out before I call the pound." From the corner of her eye, Simone saw the movement. 3 large men in dark suits were pushing through the crowd. They were moving fast. Their hands were reaching for their belts. The head of security was leading them, his face set in a grim line. He was looking straight at Simone. 3. Simone whispered, but nobody heard her. The wall of bodies was closing in. Jessica was sobbing in the background, screaming that she did not know this woman. Liam was pouring himself another drink, watching the violence unfold with a look of supreme satisfaction. He thought he had won. He thought money was the only power in the room. He had no idea that the woman standing in the hoodie was not counting down to a threat. She was counting down to his execution. "What is the meaning of this disturbance?" The voice cut through the tension like a serrated knife. The wall of security guards parted and a man stepped forward. It was Roger, the hotel's general manager. He was a small man with a thin mustache and a suit that was trying too hard to look Italian. He walked with the frantic energy of a person who was terrified of losing his job but loved abusing the little power he had. Roger looked at the scene. He looked at Liam Harrington standing there in his $10,000 tuxedo holding a fresh glass of scotch. He looked at the security guards who were hesitating, and then his eyes landed on Simone. He did not see the exhausted daughter who had just spent 3 days sleeping in a hospital chair. He did not see the intellect behind her eyes. He saw the gray hoodie stained with wine. He saw the messy bun. He saw the lack of jewelry. In Roger's mind, the equation was simple. Liam Harrington was a VIP guest who spent millions at this hotel chain. Simone was a glitch in the matrix, a stain on the carpet that needed to be removed. "Mr. Harrington," Roger said, bowing slightly. His voice dripped with an oily desperation. "I am so terribly sorry. Has this woman been bothering you?" "Bothering me?" Liam laughed and took a sip of his drink. "Roger, she is practically assaulting me. She is delusional. She thinks she can threaten me in my own party. I want her gone, and I want to know how she got past the front door in the first place." Roger turned to Simone, his face hardened. The customer service smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure disgust. "You," Roger snapped. He did not ask for her name. He did not ask for her side of the story. "You need to leave, immediately, or I will have you physically removed for trespassing." "I am not trespassing," Simone said. Her voice remained calm, even though her heart was pounding against her ribs. "I am here on business. I have the paperwork right here." She reached for her bag. It was an old leather tote bag. The leather was worn at the corners, and the strap was fraying. It was a bag she had carried for 10 years, a bag that had traveled with her to board meetings in Tokyo and London. But to Roger, it looked like something fished out of a donation bin. "Don't you move!" Roger shouted. He lunged forward. Before Simone could react, Roger grabbed the strap of her bag. He yanked it with surprising force. "I know your type," Roger sneered, pulling the bag away from her. "You claim you have papers. You claim you have an invite. But really, you have stolen silverware or a weapon in here. I have to secure the safety of my guests. That is my personal property," Simone said. Her voice dropped an octave. "Give it back." "Oh, I will give it back," Roger said, "after I make sure you haven't stolen anything from the buffet." He turned the bag upside down. He did not unzip it carefully. He did not look inside. He simply dumped the entire contents of Simone's private life onto the cold, hard marble floor of the ballroom. The sound was deafening in the silent room. Thud. Clatter. Crack. A large bottle of hand sanitizer rolled across the floor, spinning until it hit Liam's shiny shoe. It was the hospital-grade kind, the kind you buy when you are terrified of germs killing your immunocompromised mother. A plastic hairbrush fell out with a few strands of gray hair caught in the bristles. Simone's phone hit the floor face down. When it bounced over, the screen was shattered. It was an older model, an iPhone from 3 years ago. Simone had never bothered to upgrade because she was too busy building empires to care about having 3 camera lenses. And then the folder. A plain manila folder slid out. It was wrinkled. It had coffee stains on the corner. It looked like trash. It slid across the polished floor and came to a stop right next to a piece of dropped shrimp. The crowd erupted. Phone cameras zoomed in. Flashbulbs went off like strobe lights. This was the content they had been waiting for. This was the drama that would go viral. "Look at that junk," someone shouted from the back. "She really is homeless," another voice laughed. "Look at her phone. My maid has a better phone than that." A woman in a red dress pointed her camera phone right at Simone's face. "Say cheese, honey." "This is going on my story." Captioning it, "Keeping it real gone wrong." Jessica stood in the background, covering her face with her hands. She was not hiding her face to cry for Simone. She was hiding her face so she would not be tagged in the videos. She was distancing herself from the wreckage. Roger kicked the empty bag toward Simone with the tip of his shoe. "Clean it up," Roger ordered. He folded his arms across his chest, feeling like a king. "Pick up your trash and get out. You are embarrassing the establishment." Liam Harrington chuckled. He walked over to the pile of belongings. He looked down at the shattered phone and the wrinkled folder. "Pathetic," Liam said. He shook his head. "You know what is sad? You probably really believe that folder is important. You probably have some scribbled resume in there or some lawsuit you typed up at the public library." He reached out and deliberately stepped on the corner of the manila folder. He ground his expensive heel into the paper, leaving a dark scuff mark on the document that was worth more than his entire life's work. "Oops." Liam smiled. "Clumsy me again." Simone did not scream. She did not lunge at him. She did not cry. Slowly, gracefully, she bent down. She ignored the hundreds of eyes burning holes into her back. She ignored the laughter that rippled through the room. She ignored Roger, who was tapping his foot impatiently. She reached for the hand sanitizer first. She placed it in her pocket. Then she picked up her shattered phone. She pressed the side button. The screen flickered green and glitchy, but the background image was still visible. It was a photo of her mother smiling. Simone carefully wiped the dust off the screen. She treated the broken device with a reverence that confused the onlookers. Then she reached for the folder. She had to tug it gently to get it out from under Liam's shoe. He put more weight on it, trying to trap it, trying to make her struggle. But Simone just waited. She looked up at him from her kneeling position. Her eyes were not the eyes of a victim. They were the eyes of a judge delivering a death sentence. "Move your foot, Liam," she said. It was not a request. It was an order. The sudden authority in her voice startled him. For a split second, he forgot he was the billionaire and she was the intruder. He stepped back instinctively. Simone picked up the folder. She dusted off the footprint. She checked the seal. It was still intact. The $1 billion rejection letter was safe. She stood up. She did not look at the crowd. She did not look at Roger. She looked only at Liam. And for the first time, she smiled. But it was not a happy smile. It was the terrifying, calm smile of a shark that has just smelled blood in the water. "You really should not have done that," Simone said softly. "You really should have just let me leave." Liam felt a chill run down his spine, but he shook it off. His ego was too big to feel fear for long. "Are you threatening me again?" Liam shouted, turning back to Roger. "See? She is crazy. She is still talking." "Roger, why is she still here? Why are her hands not in cuffs?" Roger puffed out his chest. He snapped his fingers at the security team. "Enough is enough," Roger yelled. "Grab her, restrain her, and check her pockets. If she has a broken phone, she probably stole that too." The security guards moved in. The circle tightened. The phones were recording every second of the takedown. But Simone just stood there, clutching her wrinkled folder, waiting for the moment the world would turn upside down. "Wait a second." The words were soft at first, but they stopped the security guards in their tracks. Liam Harrington was staring at his left wrist. He rubbed the skin where his watch used to be. His eyes widened in a performance that was so convincing it almost deserved an award. "My watch," Liam said, his voice rising in panic. "My Rolex. It is gone." He patted his pockets frantically. He looked at the floor. He looked at the waiters. And then slowly, deliberately, he turned his gaze back to Simone. The smirk was gone, replaced by the righteous indignation of a victim. "You." Liam pointed a shaking finger at Simone's face. "You stole it." The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The crowd gasped. The phones that were recording zoomed in closer. "That is ridiculous," Simone said. Her voice was still calm, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the folder. "I have not touched you. I have not been within 3 feet of you except when you assaulted me with your drink." "Liar!" Liam screamed. He lunged forward but let his friends hold him back. "You bumped into me when you were crawling around on the floor picking up your trash. I felt it. I felt you brush against my wrist. That watch is a custom Daytona. It is worth $50,000. He turned to Roger, his face red with fake fury. "Call the police," Liam shouted. "Call them right now." She bumped into me and the watch vanished. I know this type. I know exactly how their minds work. I see it all the time in the neighborhoods my company gentrifies. Poverty breeds thieves. Roger, the manager, did not hesitate. He did not ask for proof. He did not suggest checking the floor. He saw a billionaire claiming a crime, and he saw a black woman in a hoodie. The verdict in his mind was already guilty. "Lock the doors," Roger bellowed to the security team. The command sent a ripple of fear through the room. "Nobody leaves," Roger shouted. "Secure the exits. I want the NYPD here in 5 minutes. Tell them we have a grand larceny in progress and the suspect is attempting to flee." "I am not attempting to flee," Simone said. She stood her ground even as 2 large security guards stepped behind her, blocking her path. "I am standing right here waiting for you to realize how foolish you are about to look." "Search her," Liam demanded. "Check her pockets. Check that ugly bag she is holding. It is in there." "I know it is." Simone pulled the bag close to her chest. "You will not touch me. You have no right to search me without a warrant." Roger stepped into her personal space. His breath smelled of coffee and contempt. "In my hotel, I have every right," Roger spat. "You are a thief. You forfeited your rights when you decided to steal from a guest of Mr. Harrington's stature. Hand over the bag or we will take it." Simone looked around the room. She was looking for one person, one specific face in the sea of hostile strangers. She found Jessica. Her sister-in-law was standing near the buffet table, clutching her silver clutch so hard her fingers were blue. Jessica's eyes were wide with terror. She knew Simone. She knew Simone was not a thief. She knew Simone was the reason she was wearing that dress and standing in this room. "Jessica," Simone said. Her voice cut through the noise. Tell them who I am. Tell them I do not need to steal a watch. I could buy the factory that makes them." The room went quiet again. All eyes turned to Jessica. This was her moment. This was the moment she could step forward and end the madness. She could say, "That is Simone Carter. She is a venture capitalist. She is my family." Jessica looked at Liam. He was glaring at her, waiting to see whose side she was on. If she defended the thief, she would be an accomplice. She would be social suicide. She would be banned from the circle she had fought so hard to enter. Jessica looked at Simone. She saw the hoodie. She saw the mess. She saw the sinking ship. Jessica stammered. Tears began to stream down her perfectly made-up face. "Tell them," Simone urged gently. "Just tell the truth." "I don't know her," Jessica cried out. The words hit Simone harder than the caviar had. It hit her harder than the accusations. It was a physical blow to the heart. Jessica took a step back, shaking her head frantically, addressing the crowd, addressing Liam, addressing anyone who would listen. "I don't know her well," Jessica sobbed. "She is just some distant relative on my husband's side. We are not close. I haven't seen her in years. I had no idea she was like this. I had no idea she was a criminal. Please don't associate me with her. I am nothing like her." Liam smiled. It was a dark, satisfied smile. He had isolated his prey completely. Even her own blood had disowned her. "You hear that?" Liam gloated. "Even your own family knows what you are. You are a disgrace." Roger grabbed his radio. "Get the police here now, and bring the handcuffs. The suspect is uncooperative and hostile." Simone looked at Jessica one last time. Jessica refused to meet her eyes. She was busy wiping her tears carefully so she wouldn't smudge her mascara, pretending to be the victim of Simone's existence. Simone took a deep breath. She felt the cold air of the ballroom on her skin. She felt the weight of the injustice pressing down on her shoulders, but she did not crumble. She did not break. She simply tightened her grip on the folder and waited for the sound of sirens. Because she knew something they didn't. She knew that when the police arrived, they wouldn't be arresting the woman in the hoodie. But until then, she had to endure the cage they had built around her. The doors were locked. The crowd was hungry. And the man with the stolen watch in his pocket was laughing. While Roger was busy barking orders at his security team to find handcuffs, he did not notice the small red light blinking in the corner of the room. Standing near the chocolate fountain was Maya. She was 22 years old, and she had 3 million followers on TikTok for her brutal commentary on social justice and corporate hypocrisy. Maya had been filming since the moment the caviar hit Simone's hoodie. She had been silent until now. But as she watched a billionaire accuse a black woman of stealing a watch that was clearly in his own pocket, she decided it was time to go live. "Hey guys," Maya whispered into her phone microphone. Her voice was shaking with rage. "I am at the Elite Future Gala right now, and you are not going to believe what I am witnessing." She panned the camera. She showed the security guards surrounding Simone like she was a terrorist. She showed Jessica crying fake tears in the background. And she zoomed in on Liam Harrington's smug face. "Watch this," Maya narrated. "This man is Liam Harrington, CEO of Harrington Tech. He just assaulted this woman and now he is trying to have her arrested for a crime he invented." The view count on the screen started at 2,000. Within seconds, it jumped to 8,000, then 15,000. The algorithm picked up the tension and threw the video onto the For You page of every user in America. The comments started rolling in. At first, they were just angry emojis and questions. But then the internet detectives went to work. "Wait," a user named Justice Warrior wrote. "Zoom in on her face, the woman in the hoodie. I know her." Another comment popped up. "That is not a homeless woman. That is the lady who paid for my college tuition through the STEM grant." The view count hit 30,000. The hearts on the screen were exploding like fireworks. And then came the comment that changed everything. A verified account belonging to a major financial analyst typed in all caps, "Are you kidding me? That is Simone Carter." The chat went nuclear. Simone Carter. The comments scrolled so fast, they were a blur. The head of Titanium Ventures, the woman who owns half of Silicon Valley, the woman who just bought the Plaza Hotel last month. "OMG," a user named Wall Street Bay wrote. "Liam Harrington is trying to arrest the only person who can save his company. He is literally kicking out his own bank account." Maya read the comments. Her eyes went wide. She looked from her phone screen to Simone. She saw the quiet power in Simone's stance. She saw the way Simone was looking at Liam not with fear, but with pity. "You guys," Maya whispered to her 50,000 live viewers. "He does not know. He literally does not know who she is. This is going to be the most embarrassing moment in financial history." In the center of the room, Liam felt his phone vibrate in his tuxedo pocket. He ignored it. He was too busy enjoying the power trip. He watched the security guards pull out a pair of zip ties. "Cuff her," Liam ordered. "Behind the back. Make sure it is tight." His phone buzzed again, and again. A long, continuous vibration that demanded attention. Liam frowned. He pulled the phone out. It was a text from his chief financial officer. The message was marked urgent. Liam read the screen. "Sir, where are you? The Titanium Ventures deal needs to be signed in 10 minutes. Our stock just dropped another 12% in after hours trading. The rumors of bankruptcy are leaking. If we do not get that signature tonight, we are dead by morning. The investor is supposed to be in the building. Find the CEO of Titanium Ventures. Her name is Simone Carter." Liam felt a bead of sweat roll down his forehead. He checked the time. He had 9 minutes left to save his empire. He looked up at the entrance doors. He expected to see a woman in a power suit. He expected a fleet of lawyers. He expected salvation. He saw no one. Panic began to claw at his throat. He looked back at the scene in front of him. The trash was still taking up space. The drama was taking too long. He needed this room cleared. He needed perfection for when the real VIP arrived. "Get her out of here," Liam screamed. His voice cracked. "Why is she still standing there? Drag her out. Throw her in the alley. I do not care." He waved his phone in the air. "I have the most important meeting of my life in 5 minutes. The CEO of Titanium Ventures is walking through those doors any second now. I need this filth gone so I can welcome a real business partner." Maya's livestream audience went wild. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. "He is waiting for her." The comments screamed. "She is right there, you idiot! She is the one you are trying to handcuff." Liam turned to Roger. "Move. Faster. If she resists, tase her. Just get her out of my sight so I can fix my tie and prepare for Ms. Carter." Simone heard him. She heard her name spoken with such reverence by the same mouth that had called her filth. She looked at the zip ties in the guard's hand. She looked at Liam checking his reflection in a spoon, trying to look presentable for a woman he was currently destroying. She took a step forward. The guards tensed. "You are waiting for Simone Carter?" Simone asked. Her voice was clear above the chaos. Liam laughed, a nervous, hysterical laugh. "Yes, I am waiting for Simone Carter, a woman of class, a woman of power, a woman who would never be caught dead breathing the same air as you. Now get out." Simone nodded slowly. She looked directly into Maya's camera lens as if she knew exactly who was watching, as if she knew that 50,000 people were holding their breath, waiting for the hammer to drop. "Okay," Simone said, "I will go. But if I walk out those doors, Liam, your company dies with me." Liam sneered. "Go. Run along. Take your delusions with you." He turned his back on her. He looked toward the entrance, straightening his bow tie, putting on his best winning smile for the empty doorway. He had no idea that the only person who could sign his check was being shoved toward the exit by his own security team, while the entire internet watched his career burn to the ground in real time. The heavy oak doors of the ballroom burst open with a crash that silenced the whispers of the crowd. "NYPD, step back. Everyone, step back." 4 uniformed officers marched into the room. Their boots hit the marble floor with a heavy rhythmic thud that signaled authority. Their hands rested on their utility belts close to their tasers and handcuffs. The air in the room shifted instantly. The smell of expensive perfume and champagne was replaced by the cold, metallic scent of law enforcement. Liam Harrington let out a sigh of relief. He adjusted his bow tie and stepped forward, wearing the confident smile of a man who believes the law exists solely to serve his interests. He looked at the officers not as public servants, but as his personal cleanup crew. "Over here," Liam called out. He waved his hand dismissively toward Simone. "Officers, thank God you are here. This woman is the one I told the dispatcher about. She is unstable. She is a thief. And she has been harassing me and my guests for the last 20 minutes. The lead officer, a tall man with a thick neck and a badge that read Sergeant Miller, walked straight toward the center of the conflict. He looked at Liam in his tuxedo. He looked at Roger, the manager, who was nodding vigorously. And then he looked at the woman in the gray hoodie standing alone in the middle of the circle. Liam pointed a finger right in Simone's face. "Arrest her," Liam ordered. "Do not just stand there. Cuff her, put her in the back of the car, and search her thoroughly. My $50,000 Rolex is somewhere on her person. I want it back before you haul her away to whatever hole she crawled out of." The crowd held its breath. Maya, the influencer, held her phone steady, zooming in on the interaction. The comments on the live stream were moving so fast, they were a blur of panic. People were screaming at their screens, knowing an injustice was about to happen. Sergeant Miller stepped closer to Simone. His face was stern. His eyes were hidden behind the brim of his cap. "Ma'am," Sergeant Miller said. His voice was deep and commanding. "Step away from the bag. Keep your hands where I can see them." Liam laughed, a short, sharp bark of victory. "See? Even the police know a criminal when they see one. Go ahead, officer. Rough her up if you have to. She likes to resist." Simone did not move away from her bag. She did not tremble. She did not look at the handcuffs dangling from the sergeant's belt. Instead, she did something that confused everyone in the room. She slowly raised her left hand. She did not raise it in surrender. She did not raise it to strike. She raised it as if she were showing a pass to enter a club. She pulled back the sleeve of her oversized Yale hoodie. The fabric slid down her forearm, revealing her skin. And there on her wrist were 2 things that told the entire story of who she was. The first was a plastic wristband. It was cheap white plastic, the kind they snap onto your wrist when you are admitted to the emergency room. It was crinkled and worn. The black ink printed on it was faded, but if you looked closely, you could see the words, Mount Sinai Intensive Care Unit. It was the mark of a daughter who had spent the last 72 hours sitting in a hard plastic chair, holding her mother's hand, praying for a miracle. It was the badge of the human being who prioritized love over appearance. The second thing was a tattoo. It was small, just a simple geometric shape in black ink on the inside of her wrist. A capital T encased in a diamond. To the uneducated eye, it looked like a meaningless doodle. But to anyone in the world of high finance, to anyone who read the Wall Street Journal, or followed the stock market, that symbol was more recognizable than a national flag. It was the logo of Titanium Ventures, the venture capital firm that managed over $400 billion in assets. The firm that had funded the biggest tech giants of the last decade. The firm that could make or break a CEO's career with a single signature. Sergeant Miller stared at the wrist. He looked at the hospital band. He looked at the tattoo. And then his eyes traveled up to Simone's face. He squinted. He looked past the lack of makeup. He looked past the messy hair and the dark circles of exhaustion. He looked into her eyes. And then the color drained from Sergeant Miller's face. His hand dropped from his belt. His posture changed from aggression to shock. Simone tilted her head slightly to the side. A small, sad smile played on her lips. "Hello, Sergeant Miller," Simone said softly. Her voice was calm, but it carried across the silent room like a bell. The officer blinked. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "It has been a long time," Simone continued. "I believe the last time we saw each other was at the NYPD Benevolent Association Gala last Christmas. You were wearing a blue tie." Sergeant Miller took a step back. His eyes were wide. "Mrs. Carter," the officer whispered. Simone nodded. "I trust your wife is doing well," Simone asked politely, as if they were having tea instead of standing in a crime scene. "Did she like the vintage diamond earrings I sent her for her birthday?" I remember she mentioned she loved Art Deco jewelry, so I had my assistant track down a pair from the 1920s. The room went dead silent. Liam Harrington froze. His hand was still pointing in the air, but his finger began to tremble. Earrings, Liam thought. Vintage diamond earrings. Sergeant Miller swallowed hard. He looked terrified. Not of Simone, but of the situation he had almost walked into. "Yes, ma'am," Sergeant Miller stammered. His voice was shaking. She loves them. She wears them every Sunday. Mrs. Carter, we had a call, a report of a disturbance, a theft." "I know," Simone said. She lowered her hand, but she kept her gaze fixed on the officer. "I am the disturbance sergeant. Apparently my presence here is offensive to Mr. Harrington, and according to him, I have stolen a watch that I could buy the company for." She turned her eyes to Liam. "Tell me, Sergeant," Simone asked, her voice turning into steel. "When a man files a false police report against a donor of the police pension fund, what is the standard protocol? Do you arrest the woman he lied about? Or do you ask the man to empty his pockets?" Liam Harrington felt the blood turn to ice in his veins. He looked at the sergeant. He looked at the way the officer was looking at Simone with total respect and fear. And for the first time in his life, Liam realized that his money was not the biggest thing in the room. He was standing in the shadow of a mountain, and the avalanche was about to start. "Mr. Harrington, stop! Please stop!" The voice was a strangled scream coming from the main entrance. It broke the heavy silence of the room like a gunshot. Liam Harrington froze. His finger was still pointing at Simone. His face was still twisted in a mask of arrogant rage. He turned his head slowly, annoyed that his moment of triumph was being interrupted again. It was Kevin, his chief financial officer. Kevin was not a man who ran. Kevin was a man who sat in air-conditioned offices and moved numbers on spreadsheets. But right now, Kevin was sprinting across the marble floor of the ballroom. His tie was crooked. His face was pale and slick with sweat. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost or a stock market crash, or both. Kevin pushed through the crowd of security guards. He did not care about the police officers. He did not care about the guests. He did not even look at Liam. His eyes were locked on one person. He ran straight to Simone, and then right there in front of the frozen crowd, Kevin, the CFO of a billion-dollar tech startup, threw himself onto the floor. He did not just kneel, he collapsed. He slid on his expensive suit trousers until he was right at Simone's feet. His breath was coming in ragged gasps. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely clasp them together. "Mrs. Carter," Kevin wheezed. His voice was thick with terror. "Oh my God, Mrs. Carter, I am so sorry. I am so incredibly sorry. I had no idea you were already here." Liam stared at his assistant. He blinked once, then twice. His brain was trying to process the image, but the pieces would not fit. Why was his CFO kneeling in front of the trash? Why was he calling the thief Mrs. Carter? "Kevin, what are you doing?" Liam snapped. His voice wavered slightly. "Get up. You are embarrassing yourself. This woman is a criminal. She is being arrested." Kevin whipped his head around. He looked at Liam with eyes that were wide with disbelief and horror. "Arrested?" Kevin choked out. He scrambled to his feet but kept his body angled respectfully toward Simone, protecting her. "Are you insane, Liam? Do you have any idea what you have done?" Kevin pointed a trembling hand at Simone. "This is not a criminal." Kevin screamed. His voice cracked under the strain. "This is Simone Carter. This is the chairwoman of the board. This is the Titanium Fund." The words hung in the air. Titanium Fund. The two words that controlled the destiny of Silicon Valley. The two words that Liam had been praying for all week. The two words that were supposed to save his life. Liam looked at Simone. He looked at the gray hoodie he had called a rag. He looked at the face he had called ugly. He looked at the woman he had treated like a stain on his shoe. And suddenly the illusion shattered. He saw it now. He saw the posture. It was not the slouch of a defeated woman. It was the relaxed stance of someone who owned the building. He saw the eyes. They were not tired from poverty. They were tired from carrying the weight of the global economy. The realization hit him like a physical blow to the stomach. The blood drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse standing upright. His knees buckled, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hand went numb. The crystal glass he had been holding, the glass filled with 50-year-old scotch, slipped from his fingers. It fell in slow motion. Time seemed to stretch out. Every person in the room watched the glass fall. It tumbled through the air, turning end over end, catching the light of the chandelier one last time. Smash! The sound of shattering crystal was deafening. Shards of glass exploded across the marble floor. The amber liquid splashed onto Liam's patent leather shoes, soaking his socks. But he did not move. He did not look down. He could not look away from Simone. Behind him, there was another sound, a soft, dull thud. It was Jessica. She had been standing near the buffet table, clutching her designer purse. When Kevin screamed the name, Simone Carter, Jessica's world ended. Her hands went limp. Her clutch fell to the floor, spilling her lipstick and her car keys. Her jaw unhinged. She stared at her sister-in-law. The memories flooded back to her in a terrifying wave. The tuition checks for her children signed by S. Carter. The mortgage payments on the Hamptons house paid by a trust called the Carter Foundation. Jessica had always assumed Simone was just a middle manager for some boring company. She had never asked. She had never cared enough to ask. Now she realized the truth. The woman she had just publicly disowned. The woman she had refused to defend. The woman she had humiliated to impress a billionaire. That woman was the billionaire. Simone did not look at Jessica. She did not look at the shattered glass. She moved. Her movements were slow and deliberate. She walked past Sergeant Miller, who stepped aside with a nod of deep respect. She walked past the security guards, who were now looking at the floor, wishing they could disappear. She walked past Roger, the manager, who was trembling so violently his teeth were chattering. She walked to the spot where her bag had been dumped. She knelt down. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming in the vents. 50,000 people on the live stream were watching in absolute silence. Simone reached into the side pocket of her battered leather bag. She pulled out a small black velvet case. She snapped it open. Inside, nestled in the fabric, lay a fountain pen. It was a Mont Blanc skeleton edition. Platinum and sapphires. It was a writing instrument worth $50,000. The exact same value as the watch Liam claimed she had stolen. The irony was sharp enough to cut skin. Simone took the pen. She held it up to the light. The sapphires sparkled. Then she reached for the manila folder. The folder still bore the dirty footprint of Liam's shoe. The scuff mark was dark and ugly against the beige paper. Simone brushed the dust off with her hand. She did not look angry. She looked disappointed, like a teacher watching a student fail a test they should have passed. She stood up. She held the folder in one hand and the platinum pen in the other. She turned to face Liam. He was shaking. A visible tremor ran through his entire body. He looked small. The tuxedo didn't look expensive anymore. It looked like a costume. Simone took one step toward him. Liam took one step back. "You were in a rush, Liam," Simone said. Her voice was conversational, calm, terrifying. "You said you had a meeting. You said the CEO of Titanium Ventures was coming to save you. You were very concerned about the time." She tapped the folder with the tip of the $50,000 pen. Tap, tap, tap. "Well," Simone said, "I am here. I am on time. And I have the paperwork you were so desperate for." She held the folder out to him. Liam stared at it. He knew what was inside. It was the term sheet. The liquidity injection. The $1 billion that would pay his debts, save his reputation, and keep him in the lifestyle he loved. But he couldn't reach for it. His arms were paralyzed by shame. "Take it," Simone ordered softly. Liam's hand shook as he reached out. He took the folder. He opened it. His eyes scanned the pages. He was looking for salvation. He was looking for a way out of this nightmare. Simone watched him read. She watched the hope flicker in his eyes. "You are waiting for the signature," Simone said. She uncapped the pen. The sound was a sharp click. "You are waiting for me to sign on the dotted line. You are waiting for me to transfer $1 billion into your account so you can continue to treat people like garbage. So you can continue to pour wine on women who dress differently than you. So you can continue to laugh at the poor while standing on their backs." Liam looked up from the paper. His eyes were wet. Tears of fear were pooling in them. "Mrs. Carter," Liam whispered. His voice was a broken rasp. "Please. I didn't know. It was a mistake. I am under so much stress. Please. My employees. My legacy." Simone smiled. It was a smile that did not reach her eyes. It was the smile of a judge delivering the final verdict. "Your legacy," Simone repeated. She took the folder back from his trembling hands. She placed it on the nearest table. She smoothed out the page where his dirty footprint had left a mark. She leaned over the document. She brought the platinum pen down to the paper. Liam held his breath. Kevin, the CFO, held his breath. Jessica held her breath. Simone wrote, but she did not sign her name. She wrote one single word in large, flowing cursive letters. The ink was black and permanent. Rejected. She drew a line under it, a thick, heavy line that cut through the text like a scar. Then she wrote one more sentence below it. Hostile takeover initiated. She recapped the pen. She picked up the folder and handed it back to Liam. He looked at the word. Rejected. The color drained from the world. He felt his knees give way. He fell. He didn't just sit down, he crumbled onto the wet floor into the puddle of scotch and glass. Simone looked down at him. You wanted to save your trash company, Liam, Simone said. Her voice was cold. But you forgot one thing. When you treat the world like trash, eventually the world takes you out. She turned to Roger, the manager, who was now sobbing quietly in the corner. And Roger, Simone said, I believe you wanted to call the police for a theft. She pointed to the folder in Liam's hand. You should call them back, because I just stole his company, and I did it legally. The room erupted. Not with applause, but with the collective gasp of 100 people watching an empire fall in real time. The camera on Maya's phone was still rolling, capturing every second of the destruction. Liam Harrington lay on the floor, ruined by his own arrogance, while the woman in the hoodie towered over him, holding a pen that cost more than his dignity. Please wait. Mrs. Carter, please just listen to me for 1 second. Liam Harrington scrambled forward on his hands and knees. The expensive fabric of his tuxedo pants tore against the marble floor, but he did not care. He ignored the shards of glass digging into his palms. He ignored the gasps of the crowd. He looked up at Simone with eyes that were wide and wet with desperation. It was a joke. Liam stammered, his voice pitching high and hysterical. It was just a misunderstanding. You have to understand the stress I am under. My eyesight has been terrible lately. I honestly didn't see you. I didn't see who you were. If I had known it was you, I never would have." He trailed off, realizing how pathetic he sounded. He swallowed hard and tried a different angle. "Think of the employees, Mrs. Carter," Liam pleaded. He reached out as if to touch the hem of her hoodie, but pulled back when he saw the cold look in her eyes. "I have 3,000 people working for me. Good people, innocent people. If you don't sign this deal tonight, they all lose their jobs tomorrow. Do it for them. Don't punish them for my mistake." Simone looked down at him. Her face was unreadable. She held the platinum fountain pen suspended over the open folder. The sapphires on the cap caught the light. "You are right, Liam," Simone said softly. Her voice was not angry. It was thoughtful, almost gentle. Liam's heart leaped. He felt a rush of adrenaline. She was listening. She was considering it. He knew it. These corporate types always cared about the optics. She couldn't let 3,000 people become unemployed just because of a personal vendetta. It would look bad for her brand. Yes, exactly. Liam breathed out a sigh of relief. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand. "It is about the bigger picture. We are both business people. We understand that emotions have no place in a billion-dollar deal." Simone nodded slowly. She looked at the document. She looked at the line that required her signature, the line that would transfer $1 billion of Titanium Ventures capital into the dying veins of Harrington Tech. "The bigger picture," Simone repeated. She lowered the pen. The nib touched the paper. The sound of the pen scratching against the document was audible in the terrified silence of the ballroom. Scritch, scratch. It was a fluid, decisive sound. Liam watched the movement of her hand. He watched the ink flow. He felt his knees go weak with relief. She was signing it. She was actually signing it. He had done it. He had survived the most humiliating moment of his life and come out with the money. He started to smile. It was a shaky, tentative smile, but it was there. He was already planning how he would spin this tomorrow. He would issue a press release. He would make a donation to her charity. He would fix this. "Thank you," Liam whispered. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. You won't regret this." Simone finished writing. She recapped the pen with a sharp, audible click. She picked up the folder. She did not close it. She held it open, facing her chest for a moment. "I am sure I won't," Simone said. She turned the folder around. "Here is your copy," she said. Liam reached out with eager hands. He grabbed the folder like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. He looked down at the signature line, expecting to see the elegant loops of Simone Carter's name. His smile froze. It didn't just fade. It died a violent death on his lips. The camera on Maya's phone zoomed in. The 50,000 people watching the live stream leaned in. The entire room seemed to lean in. There was no signature. Across the entire bottom half of the page, in letters that were 2 inches high, Simone had written a single word: rejected. The letters were jagged and bold. They looked less like handwriting and more like a stamp of doom. But that was not all. Below the word rejected, there was a smaller block of text written in Simone's precise architectural handwriting. Liam squinted to read it through the blur of his panic. Notice of debt acquisition and asset seizure. Liam blinked. He read it again. His brain refused to comprehend the words. What is this?" Liam whispered. He looked up at Simone, his face gray and slack. Simone took a step closer. She towered over him. She looked like a judge, a jury, and an executioner all rolled into one woman in a gray hoodie. "You asked me to invest in your company, Liam," Simone said. Her voice was clear and cold, carrying to every corner of the room. "You asked for a lifeline. But I don't invest in liabilities, and I don't partner with people who lack basic human decency." She gestured to the paper in his hands. "I did not sign your investment deal," Simone continued. "Instead, I just activated a clause in your current debt structure. You see, Liam, while you were busy pouring wine on me, I was busy buying the bank that holds your commercial loans." Liam let out a strangled sound, a whimpering noise that sounded like a wounded animal. You bought the bank," he gasped. "I bought the debt," Simone corrected him. "Every single cent you owe. The loans for this building. The loans for your private jet. The loans for your company servers. I own them all now. She leaned in closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper that was louder than a scream. And as your new creditor, I am calling in the loans. Immediately. You are in default, Liam. Liam shook his head frantically. No. No, you can't do that. I have 30 days. I have grace periods. Not anymore, Simone said. Not when the creditor determines that the management is incompetent and the assets are at risk. And judging by the fact that the CEO is currently rolling around on the floor in broken glass, I would say the assets are at very high risk. She checked her watch. Not a Rolex, but a simple digital watch she used for jogging. It is currently 9:45 p.m., Simone said. I am giving you exactly 24 hours. By this time tomorrow, I want you out of my building. I want your desk cleared. I want your key card on the reception counter. If you are still in the office when my team arrives, we will have security escort you out. And unlike your security, Liam mine does not wait for a countdown. Liam slumped. The folder slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. He looked at his tuxedo. He looked at the room full of people who were no longer his peers. He was ruined. Totally and completely scrubbed from the map. Simone turned to leave. But then she stopped. She remembered something. She reached up and touched the collar of her hoodie. The fabric was still damp with red wine and sticky with caviar. The stain was dark and ugly against the gray cotton. She looked back at Liam one last time. And Liam, she said. He looked up, his eyes hollow and defeated. You called this a rag, Simone said, pinching the fabric of her hoodie. You laughed at it. She smoothed the material down with a gentle hand. This hoodie belonged to my father, she said. He wore it to his night shift at the factory every single day for 30 years so I could go to college. He died wearing this hoodie. Her voice trembled slightly, but it was not from weakness. It was from a fierce protective love. There is more dignity in one thread of this cotton than in your entire existence. She pointed to the stain on her shoulder. And this stain, Simone said. This wine you poured on my father's memory. It is going to cost you everything. This hoodie is now the most expensive piece of clothing in history, Liam, because it just cost you $1 billion. She turned her back on him. She did not look at Jessica, who was sobbing silently. She did not look at Roger, who was hiding in the kitchen. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea parting for Moses. No one spoke. No one moved. They just watched the woman in the gray hoodie walk out into the night, leaving the wreckage of a billionaire behind her. Get him out of here. The command was simple, but the execution was chaotic. The same security team that Liam Harrington had ordered to arrest Simone was now grabbing him by the arms of his ruined tuxedo. He kicked and screamed like a toddler denied a toy. He shouted about lawyers. He shouted about knowing the mayor. He shouted that it was all a mistake. But nobody was listening. The only sound that mattered was the collective shutter click of 100 smartphone cameras documenting his downfall. As Liam was dragged through the double doors, his heels leaving streaks of scotch and regret on the marble floor, the room turned its attention to the last person standing in the wreckage. Jessica. She stood alone near the buffet table. The circle of socialites she had been trying so hard to impress had vanished. They had stepped away from her as if she were contagious. They had heard her deny her own family. They had watched her choose a stranger over blood. And in the world of the elite, loyalty is the only currency that matters. Jessica was now bankrupt. She looked at the exit where Liam had disappeared. Then she looked at Simone. Simone was busy packing her things. She placed the platinum pen back into its velvet case. She picked up the folder. She did not look at Jessica. She looked like she was ready to go home and sleep for a week. Jessica's breath came in shallow, panic-stricken gasps. She saw her life flashing before her eyes. The house in the Hamptons with the ocean view, the private school tuition, the black card in her wallet. All of it flowed from one source. All of it came from the woman she had just thrown to the wolves. Simone. Jessica cried out. She ran across the room. Her high heels wobbled on the slick floor. She threw herself at Simone, not with the grace of a lady, but with the desperation of a drowning woman. She reached out and grabbed the sleeve of the gray hoodie, the same sleeve she had refused to touch 5 minutes ago. "Simone, wait. Please wait. You have to listen to me." Simone stopped. She did not pull away. She just looked down at Jessica's hand clutching her arm. Her expression was not angry. It was worse. It was indifferent. "What do you want, Jessica?" Simone asked. Her voice was flat. "I was scared." Jessica sobbed. The tears were real now. They were hot tears of terror. "I didn't know what to do. Liam is so powerful. I thought he would destroy us. I was trying to protect the family. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me," Simone repeated. The words hung in the air. "You protected me by telling the police you didn't know me. You protected me by wiping a man's shoe while he called me trash." No, it wasn't like that," Jessica pleaded. She fell to her knees, hugging Simone's legs. "I panicked. I am just a mom, Simone. I am just trying to do what is best for the kids, for your nephews. Please. You know I love you. We are family. Blood is thicker than water, right?" Simone looked down at the woman weeping on her shoes. She thought about the last 5 years. She thought about the birthday parties where she sat in the corner while Jessica bragged about the gifts Simone had paid for. She thought about the vacations she funded but was never invited to join. She reached into her pocket. Jessica looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. She thought Simone was reaching for a tissue. She thought Simone was going to wipe her tears and tell her it was okay. She thought the checkbook was opening again. Simone pulled out her phone. She swiped the screen with her thumb. She found a contact named David, her brother, Jessica's husband. She put the phone to her ear. "Hello?" David answered on the first ring. "Hey sis, how is Mom? Is everything okay?" Simone looked directly into Jessica's eyes as she spoke. "Mom is fighting David," Simone said. "But I am not calling about Mom. I am calling about your wife." Jessica froze. She shook her head frantically, mouthing the word no over and over again. "David," Simone said. Her voice was calm and businesslike. "I am at the gala. Jessica is here, and something has become very clear to me tonight. Jessica does not seem to know who I am." "What do you mean?" David asked, confused. "She told the police she didn't know me," Simone continued. "She told a room full of people that I was a stranger, and I realized she is right. I have been a stranger to her. I have just been an ATM machine with a pulse." David was silent on the other end. "So I am going to make it easier for her," Simone said. "Since I am a stranger, I shouldn't be paying for a stranger's lifestyle." Simone took a breath. "Cancel the supplementary Centurion card, David. Tonight. Right now. And the house in the Hamptons. I am putting it on the market tomorrow morning. I think it is time for you and Jessica to move into something you can afford on your own salary." Jessica screamed, "No, Simone, you can't. The kids, their school." Simone ignored the screaming woman at her feet. "And David, one more thing. The private school tuition is due next week. Since Jessica is so worried about her status, I am sure she can find a job to cover the $50,000. Maybe she can ask Liam Harrington for a loan. I hear he is looking for work too." Simone hung up the phone. She looked down at Jessica one last time. Jessica was no longer crying. She was staring at the floor in shock, her mouth open, her entire world collapsing in real time. "You wanted to be elite Jessica," Simone said. "You wanted to belong to the club where money matters more than loyalty. Well, congratulations. You just learned the most important rule of that club. When you bet against the bank, you lose everything." Simone stepped back. Jessica slumped forward, her silver dress pooling around her like a puddle of mercury. She had traded her family for a moment of validation from a man who despised her. And now she had neither. Simone turned and walked away. She walked past the stunned crowd. She walked past Maya, who was still filming with tears in her eyes. She walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind the shattered glass, the shattered ego of a billionaire, and the shattered life of a traitor. The news cycle moved fast. By the time the sun rose over Manhattan the next morning, the name Liam Harrington was toxic. The video of the confrontation had been viewed 20 million times. The hashtag #rejected was trending #1 globally. But it wasn't just a social media storm. It was a financial funeral. At 9 o'clock sharp, a team of auditors from Titanium Ventures arrived at the Harrington Tech headquarters. They did not knock. They used the key cards that Simone had authorized. They marched past the confused receptionist and went straight to the executive suite. They found Liam sitting in his office staring at a blank computer screen. He was still wearing the tuxedo shirt from the night before. He looked like a ghost. "Mr. Harrington," the lead auditor said, "please hand over your badge. Security will escort you to the elevator." Liam didn't fight. He didn't argue. He just stood up and walked out. He left behind his ergonomic chair, his panoramic view of the city, and his dreams of being the next Steve Jobs. But the story didn't end with his destruction. Simone kept her word. She didn't fire the 3,000 employees. Instead, she merged the company with a sustainable energy firm she owned. She kept the engineers. She kept the support staff. She kept the people who actually did the work. She only removed the rot at the top. The internet cheered. They called it the most satisfying corporate takeover in history. Memes of Simone signing the folder with the word "rejected" were printed on t-shirts. People started using the phrase "don't pull a Liam" whenever someone was being arrogant. But Simone didn't see any of this. She wasn't watching the news. She was standing outside the hotel entrance under the grand awning. The night air was cool and crisp. The city sounds of New York, honking taxis and distant sirens felt like a lullaby after the chaos inside. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the curb. The valet jumped out and opened the rear door with a deep bow. He didn't care about her hoodie. He knew exactly who she was. Simone didn't get in immediately. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the air of freedom. She reached into her bag and pulled out a fresh, clean hoodie. It was black, simple, and soft. She pulled the wine-stained gray hoodie over her head. She looked at the old garment in her hands. The stain was dark and ugly. But to her, it looked like a battle scar. It looked like victory. She folded it carefully and placed it on the leather seat of the car. She climbed into the back seat. "To the hospital," Simone said to the driver. As the car glided silently through the streets of Manhattan, moving like a shadow through the city of lights, Simone pulled out her phone again. She dialed the number for the ICU. "Hello?" A nurse answered. "Hi, it is Simone," Simone said softly. "How is she?" There was a pause that made Simone's heart stop. "Ms. Carter," the nurse said. "She woke up about 10 minutes ago. Her vitals are stabilizing. She is asking for you." Tears finally spilled down Simone's cheeks. They were not tears of anger or stress. They were tears of pure relief. "Tell her I am coming," Simone whispered. "Tell her I handled the business. Tell her the bad man is gone. Tell her I am coming home." She hung up the phone and looked out the window. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and silver. She had crushed a billionaire. She had exiled a traitor. She had saved thousands of jobs. But none of that mattered as much as the simple fact that she was going to hold her mother's hand again. She was not just a CEO. She was not just a shark. She was a daughter. And that was the most powerful title she owned. So here's the question that keeps me up at night. What would you do? If you were standing in that ballroom and you saw your own flesh and blood being humiliated, would you speak up? Or would you look at the billionaire in the tuxedo and decide that his approval was worth more than your soul? It is easy to say you would be brave. It is easy to say you would be like Simone. But when the pressure is on, when the cameras are rolling and your social status is on the line, fear has a funny way of making people silent. We live in a world that is obsessed with the packaging. We worship the suit, the watch, the car. We treat people like gods because they have a verified check mark next to their name. And we treat people like garbage because they are wearing a hoodie. But if this story taught us anything, it is that the packaging is a lie. The suit does not make the man and the hoodie does not make the bum. Sometimes the person you are laughing at is the person who owns the building you are standing in. Money can buy a lot of things. It can buy a Rolex. It can buy a penthouse. It can even buy silence for a little while. But there is one thing that all the billions in the world cannot buy. It cannot buy character. Liam Harrington had $1 billion and 0 character. Simone Carter had a dirty hoodie and a heart of gold. And in the end, gold always weighs more than paper. So the next time you see someone judging a person by their appearance, I want you to remember the word rejected. I want you to remember the look on Liam's face when the pen hit the paper. And I want you to be the person who speaks up before the ink dries. If this story made you cheer, if it made you angry, if it made you want to call your mom and tell her you love her, then please hit that share button. Spread the truth. Let the world know that we are watching. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because Jessica is about to learn that the real world is a lot harder than the Hamptons. Next week, you are not going to want to miss what happens when she walks into the employment office and realizes the only job available is cleaning the floors at Simone's company. Until then, keep your head up, keep your eyes open, and never let anyone treat you like a discount item. You are full price, baby. Always.